Here we go, Julius Caesar continuing. Nacti, plural of nankascore in the past passive for plural. So someone found, plural people found, vacuus ab imperiis, vacant from any imperial, empire sort of thing. Here we go. Valerius and Sardinia. So Valerius, he found when he went to Sardinia, it empty from any authority basically. And Curio, when he came to Sicily, Valerius and Curio making up the eye of the Nacti. So they found it empty from any imperial orders or military sort of power. Cum exercitibus, with their armies, perveniat eo to there. So Valerius and Curio, they perveniated, they reached Sardinia and Sicily with their armies, and they found it vacuous, empty. Tubero, cum in Africam venicit. Tubero, when he came into Africa, and when he got to Africa, he found in Provincia, in the province, that cum imperia was atium varus. He found with power to be Atius Varus, or he found Atius Varus with the power in the province. Qui, this is Varus here, who ad Axumium ut supra demonstravimus, as above we have demonstrated. This would be the mus of singular, so as I've demonstrated, since it's just Caesar writing. Amissus cohortibus, so this is a plate of absolute. Having lost his cohorts ad Aximius, Protonus, immediately onward, he had ex fuga in Africam pervenerate. So he had become a fugitive from there, and he had reached into Africa, or he'd reached Africa, as would say. Atqui and Em, this Em's probably Africa, and there, in Africa, sua sponte, of his own free will, of his own accord, he occupated the vacuum. So the vacancy, this emptiness of leadership, he occupied it, he probably seized it. Delecto qui habito, this here is a form of ablative again. So he'd had a recruitment, a delectus, and duas legiones effeceret. So he had made 2 legions from his dialectus. Hominum and lacorum, notitia, these are genitives. So notitia, so he had a knowledge of men and of the place. And usu eos provincia nactus. Okay, so he had this knowledge of the place and of the people, and this usu means this is experience probably, which he had nactus again, we saw up here nacti, which he had found in the province, additus, an approach to ea conenda, to these things which he was trying. Quod, because porcus anti-ennis, because a few years before, ex praetur, had come out of a praetorship, he had obtenovated em provincium. So he had, before he'd been actually here running this province, that's why he had such a notitia, such knowledge of the men in the places, and so he knew all about this province and how it could help him. Hic venientem Utica. Utica is a place, proper noun you. Present participle accusative venientem. So navibus tuberonem. So when Tubero was coming, venientem, here to Utica with his ships, the portu and oppido prohibit. Okay, so this is a guy who, as we know, he knew the place because he had been a praetor here of this province, and now he's prohibiting from the port and from the town Tubero bringing his ships. Nequi and neither adfectum valatunum filium exponere in terra partietur. So his affectatum filium would be his affected son with a valetudine, which is used as a sickness. So his son who was affected with the sickness, patiote, nequi patiote, he did not allow him to exponere him in terra, so he didn't allow him to bring him onto the land. Said, but sublatus ancorus, when he's had the anchor sublatus, or sent down, the anchor was brought up basically because he was cogited, he was forced, excedere ea loco. He was forced to lift his anchor and to excedere, to go away from this place. 32. His rebus confectus Caesar. So Caesar, the nominative, ablative absolute, with these rebuses, these matters are confectus, completed. Ut reliquum temporis, a tempus, sorry. Ut reliquum tempus e labore intermitteretur. So there will be an intermission from the labour. There would be some remaining time to give them a break from labour. Milites, these are the soldiers, which are Caesar in proxima municipia deducta. So Caesar here led his soldiers into a nearby Proxima town, give them a break and intermitteretur from their labour. Ipsi, Caesar himself, ad urbem profiscatur. So he set out to the city. This city would be Rome. Coacto senatu, with the Senate having been called together, or with the Senate called together, inurius inimicorum commemorat. So he's commemorating, he's recalling, probably for the Senate, these injurious, these injustices of his enemies. That's a genitive. Nice short sentence. So he went to Rome. The Senate was called together. He most likely complained about these problems that and insults his enemies had done. Docet. So he was teaching, he was informing them, he lectured them, that say himself, nullum extraordinarium honorum appetici. So say himself had sought this honour, nullum extraordinary. So there was nothing extraordinary, or as the Loeb puts it, anomalous, nothing weird had happened basically. But expectato legitimo tempore consultus. So again, we're in ablative. But he had waited for the legitimate time of his consulship to hold the consulship. Eo fuisi contentum. He had been content, fuisse eo, to do this basically. Quod omnibus civibus pateret. So what was open to all citizens. Okay, and so this is April 1st, 49, the year 49. And the legal interval, according to this note, is that the interval between consulships was 10 years, but an exception was made for Pompey. There you go, some info. Okay, daily dictionary, extraordinarius, immoderate, special, supplementary. So it was outside of the ordinary, so nothing exceptionally special or weird had happened. Latum, proposed ab ex tribunus plebis, from the 10 tribunes of the plebs, contradicentibus inimicus, where the inimicus are his enemies. This here looks like a present participle plural. So where these enemies are speaking against this, obviously. Catone, vero, so that's but or moreover, with Cato most bitter, acerame, which is going with Cato. So Cato is most bitterly, and repugnante, here's another ablative. This is in another present participle. So with Cato repugning, which is fighting back or fighting against him most bitterly, et pristina consuacine dicende mora dies extrahente. Here we have another present participle from the N there, and the N and the T. And the former custom, the pristina constituno of speaking, would extrahene, which would drag out a delay in the day. This is a filibuster, which they still have in America, I think. It's just you just speak for a long time, drawing out the time. Ut sui ratio absentis haberitur. As his consulship, his ratio, his plan here basically, had been held in his absence, typically you would have to be there, and with the ipso consule Pompei, with Pompey himself as consul. So here we get a good example of lots of ablative absolutes. So it's proposed by the tribunes of the plebs, with his enemies speaking against him, and with Cato fighting bitterly against this, and using the custom of a filibuster, we dragged out the day, and there was complaining that he wasn't there in person, and Pompey himself had been the consul. Qui si improbasset, who, if he had improbasset, not approved, this would be Pompey was consul at the time, who, if he did not approve it, cur, why, ferri passes esset. Again, the esset's going with passes. So why did he allow this to be carried, this proposal? See probasset, and if he had approved it, cur se uti populi beneficio prohibisset. So if he approved of it, why, say again, reflexive pronoun, this beneficial thing, this to be used by the Roman people. I might clear that up in a sec. Patientiam proponent suem. So he proposed his own issue that should be allowed, patientia, cum de exercitibus, when concerning the armies, dimittendis ultro postulit. So he's proposed that both of the armies should be dismissed or sent away. This is the gerundy form. Ultro, we'll just say is furthermore, or whatever you want to call it. So back here, so why should prohibit this beneficio, which is a service of the Roman people, something that would benefit them? So he proposed his own thing that they should allow the armies to be sent away. This is a postule of it, just means he's demanded or he's asked this. In quo, in which a iacturum dignitatis atqui honoris ipse facturus esset, which would be himself, facturus is a future, a iacturum, this is a loss or a sacrifice or a throwing away, dignitatis, of his dignity and of his honour. This would be, ipse himself would be doing this in sending away the armies. Again, ultro is an adverb. Accabitatem. For declension accusative, this is bitterness, it's a noun of bitterness. So Docker, he was continuing to inform them or teach them, instructing them about the bitterness of his enemies. This is a genitive, inimicorum, qui, who, this was these enemies, who, quod ab altero postulant in se recusant, in which they were postulating, they were demanding from another, altero, and what they were recusanting to do themselves. Atqui and atqui omnia, and everything, malent permiscere, malent's the verb that takes the infinitive. They preferred to mix in everything together. It's causing a confusion usually. It's a perturber, as they're calling it. Quam then imperium exercitus qui dimittere. So he's telling them about the bitterness of his enemies, who, what they demanded from another, they themselves wouldn't do, and they preferred to just cause trouble and confuse everything together than to dimittere, to lose their imperium, their power, and their army. Inuriam in ripiendus legionibus predicat. Predicat here means he's warning them or notifying or announcing this inuriam, this insult or injustice in ripping away his legions. This is another gerundive again with legionibus. The cruelidatem and insulem. This is the cruelty and insolence or pig-headedness. In circumscribendus tribunus plebis. Circumscribing means to draw a line around, so it means to block off, means to deceive. So he's just gone against the tribunes of the plebs. He's talking about Pompey here. And, this is a big insult or injury to Caesar, having his legions ripped away. And again, he's talking about the cruelty and the insolence and how they're thwarting the will of the tribunes of the plebs. Conditiones a se latus, these are the conditions which are proposed. Latus means they were related or born by him. So the conditions he proposed himself, expedita, pedo means to seek basically, colloquia and denegata commemorate. Again, he's commemorating them, so he's bringing to mind the conditions which he himself had proposed. They'd been announced in this colloquia and they've been denegated, they've been denied. Pro quibus rebus, pro takes the ablative, for which things, because of these things, or pro quibus rebus, for these things, basically, he's exhorting, so he's encouraging or exhorting them and postulating and demanding that the Rempublica, the Republic, suscipant, so this is plural again, that they should take up the power of the Republic and una secum, and together, or one with him, but they usually say together with him, administrant. Again, this is the plural thing. So, because of these regions, he's demanding that they take up the power with him. This is the senators and administrant. They administrate the Republic with him. Sin, this is a question, usually has NE for a question, but if defugiant, so if they were to flee this from fear or out of fear, timore, so if the senators would run away from this idea due to fear, illis, again, se onere non futurum, and per se Republica administrat, this is a future administratorum. So, he would not be a burden, says himself, he would not in future would be a burden, and per se, through himself or by himself, he would administer. Again, that's the future, the Republic. Legatos, accusative plural. So these are the delegates again, or the legates, the deputies, the ambassadors. Ad Pompeii. So ambassadors are sent to Pompeii. De composition mite opere. This is what he's saying. So they ought to be sent. We have this construction here because he's saying it. So as a head verb, it takes the infinitive, and oportore takes the infinitive on its own. So we've got a double infinitive. Decomposition, to settle the matter. Neque, so neither, say himself, reformidere, so he wasn't in any dread himself. Quod in senatu, so Pompeius, he's becoming the nominative now, so Pompei, because in the Senate, Pompei, Paulo Anti means a little before he'd said, or the things which Pompei had said in the Senate a little before, ad quos legati mitterita, to those who legates are sent, or legates mitterent, or you can see from the legates here, that's in the nominative. Legates which are sent to those, these people, his, there is attributed to them an authority. So if you send legates to people, sees them as an authority, timorum qui, and a fear, eorum, of those who mitterant, who send it, this signifies, significare. So if you send legates to people, this gives them an authority, it attributes to them an authority, and it shows fear on the part of those who sent them. Tenuus atqui infirmae haec enemae videre. So videre, again, this is what seems. Haec, these things seem. Tenuous usually means thin, but it means weak as well, and infirm, of mind, enemae is the might. So these seem to be of a weak person, basically, or as the Lobaz, petty. So petto and weak seems to be this in there of a person's soul or heart or mind. I'm just about done. So say vero, vero's but, say himself personally, ut operibus antiere studiba. Okay. So as he's again, he's talking about himself in the third person, I'm guessing. So as he's desiring anterior to go before people in works, operibus, sic. Thus, we've got ut and sic here. Justitia in equality velle supare. So velle means he wants, superare to prevail or overcome, or to be the best at, with injustice and equitate, equity or even-handedness.